Every year we celebrate Christmas. And it's not only followers of Jesus who celebrate Christmas, it's the entire culture. Even people who don't understand the meaning behind it. What's the meaning of Christmas? That God himself came down to live life as a human being named Jesus. Jesus means the Lord saves. And so we celebrate sweet little baby Jesus every year at Christmas. So those on the outside often think that Christmas is the biggest Christian holiday because it's the one that's celebrated the most in the culture. But actually, the biggest Christian holiday is Resurrection Sunday, Easter, where we recognize that this God-man sacrificed himself for us on the cross, but then was raised from the dead, showing God's victory over sin and over death. We believe that this is the turning point in all human history. But if Easter means victory over sin and death, then why do we still have sin and death? We're kind of in this phase of history that some people have called the already but not yet. The victory is here, but it's not yet complete. The kingdom of God is initiated, but still growing. So we are taking part in the kingdom of God, but it's going to come in its fullness in the future. It's kind of like how during World War II, the D-Day invasion of France by the Allies, who invaded France, and that was held by the Nazis. That was the beginning of the Allied victory, but there were still lots of fighting that remained. In Jesus' first coming, he inaugurated the last days. But in his second coming, he will complete them. In the meantime, we live in kind of this overlap of the ages. We've got two different timelines, and they overlap. Before Jesus' death, he said that this would happen, that he would die and go away and then come again. So if you've heard this message in a church at all, then you probably have questions about this. We all have questions about this. So today we're looking at the question, what does the Bible say about Jesus' second coming? For one thing, the scripture says that the second coming will mean judgment. Often our tribe, kind of American evangelical circles, we don't like to talk much about judgment and hell. Sometimes this is because this topic has been used in ways that are controlling, in ways that try to guilt people into taking action. And the fear does not have the same evangelistic power that it had maybe in previous generations. People aren't motivated by it in the same way. They don't want to make major decisions because they're scared into believing something. And so we don't try to use it as a scare tactic. But sometimes we as evangelical Christians are the ones who are scared. We're scared to talk about this because we don't want to offend anyone. But Jesus says that his second coming will mean judgment. Now, judgment is different from condemnation. In John chapter 3, the words say, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." This is what we see, that there's an opportunity to be saved through this work that Jesus has done. But the implication here is that the world deserves condemnation for all our sin. But Jesus came to save us. Jesus loved the world so much that he was willing to do that. Now, this is not an uncritical love. It's not a love that says that the world is perfect and everything is all right. It's a love that recognizes that the world does need to be cleansed. It needs to be made right. The world needs to be justified. Jesus talks about judging. In fact, Jesus himself was very clear that there is a hell, that is a place of eternal punishment. I've read that Jesus talks more about hell than anyone else in the Bible. One place we see this judgment is in Matthew chapter 25. Jesus says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick and in prison and go to visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Jesus, calling himself the Son of Man, says that the judgment will look like separating the sheep from the goats, the righteous from the unrighteous. And the righteous are going to say, "When did we see you like this and feed you or clothe you or give you food or drink?" And he says that whatever you did for one of the least of my brothers and sisters, you did for me. But then he goes on and says, then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They will also answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. This passage is often used to talk about the importance of caring for those who are around us, especially those who are on the margins of society, the most likely to be ignored. And that's absolutely the case. But there is more here, though. It's fascinating to me, the response that as Jesus judges the hearts of people rightly, people are surprised. They're not necessarily surprised that Jesus came back, but they're surprised by which side they're on. When did we see you hungry and not feed you? They were surprised because they thought they were good people. Those are the type of people who said, "Man, if I had seen Jesus, then I would have helped him." They justified themselves. But often those are the same people who say, "Well, if I give them money, they're just going to use it on drugs or alcohol." Or, "Why doesn't that person have a job? They could easily find work in this economy." Or, "If they really needed help, they wouldn't be driving a car like that." But then on the other hand, the sheep were surprised because they didn't realize that they were feeding and clothing the one who was going to be judging them. Jesus portrays himself as the judge. The book of Revelation fleshes out what this will look like. Now, think about how shocking this would have been for Jesus to portray himself as the judge. People listening that would have been wondering to themselves, who is this person who's claiming to be the one who will judge? He was a man born into a poor family. He had no university, no college, no seminary training. He owned nothing. He had no bank account, no resume, no retirement portfolio. He didn't have a house or a job, no title, no rank, and he claims to be the ultimate judge. And as he says this, he is about to be judged himself. he's going to be found guilty, and the judges will decide that he is not fit to live. He was judged by the highest political tribunals and also the highest religious tribunals. And now he's saying that he's going to come back at the end of time, and he is personally going to judge the fate of every human being who has ever lived. This is bizarre in the eyes of the world. But you and I, we will get to see this firsthand. When Jesus returns, he will judge everything, and he will judge it rightly and accurately, and he will make everything right again. I don't know about you, but I cling to this truth because I see so much injustice in the world, so many wrongs, so much evil, sometimes on a major scale and sometimes in small things. I have to trust that Jesus will judge rightly. When Jesus returns, he will judge. His return will also usher in a new heaven and a new earth. I said we're kind of in this overlapping age here where we've got two timelines. This is the creation of the earth all the way through until the end of the earth. And now Jesus' coming has happened within the timeline, but he has initiated a new kingdom. And that kingdom is going to last forever. And now we're in the overlapping of these two ages. The church lives in this time between. But ultimately, we're going to reside in the new heaven and the new earth, the one that's foretold in Revelation 21. John says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. For now, we go to paradise when we die. Jesus said this to the criminal on the cross who was dying alongside him. He said, truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. And then we will live in a new creation. He is going to come at his return and remake the heavens and the earth. And we will live in resurrected bodies. These will be like Jesus' body after the resurrection. His body then was called the first fruits of the resurrection because he was raised from the dead, and so will the rest of us be raised in the same way. And Paul says, when we see him, we will be made like him. Our bodies will be like his after the resurrection. Our bodies will be like Adam and Eve's before they sinned, before the fall. We will live in this physical new heaven and new earth with new bodies, physical bodies. We won't be like ghosts without bodies. We're not going to turn into angels. We are human beings, and we will live with physical bodies forever in relationship with God and in relationship with each other, as creation was originally designed. One of the questions I often get is regards cremation. Is this an appropriate way to treat the human body after the death of a person? And the Bible clearly talks about resurrection, but it doesn't clearly talk about what burial practices we should use. Our burial practices are traditional. And the reason that often the whole body was buried is based on this hope of the resurrection. You see, in New Testament times, Roman cultures and many other cultures around the world at that time cremated their dead. And the whole body burial was a statement that the body is important. Now today, whole body burial doesn't necessarily stand out against the rest of the culture in that way. And up until 5 years ago, most people who died were buried as whole bodies then. If Jesus raises everyone physically, then he can work out the mechanics of how that happens, even if someone's remains have been cremated and then even scattered. I think about people whose bodies were burned not by their own choice, those whether it was an intense fire, or even martyrs whose bodies were intentionally burned because the people wanted to the people attacking them wanted to make a statement against the Christian faith. But in the new earth, our bodies will be made new. We don't know exactly what they'll be like, but we can draw some things, learn from the examples that we see of Jesus' post-resurrection body. And some people argue that we won't eat or drink in heaven. And sometimes they say this because they're aghast at the idea that we would have to deal with digestion and then elimination of what we have eaten. So basically, some people don't want to talk about pooping in heaven. They don't think that's a possibility. But when you think about it, Jesus ate after the resurrection. Adam and Eve, in that perfect creation, ate in the garden. So could God remake the process so it doesn't have to happen like that? He could, but would he? We don't know. We know that Jesus ate after the resurrection. We don't know what the rest of the processes look like. But Randy Alcorn points out, no aspect of our God-created physiology can be bad. Did Adam and Eve experience digestion and elimination in the perfect world? Of course. Jesus never sinned, but his body functioned just as ours do. So the ideal that God created is good. We don't know exactly what parts of things are from the original creation and what changed after the fall. But we know that since we eat, there will be some form of digestion and elimination, and it won't be sinful. We'll get to live forever with God and other human beings on the remade earth. This is not going to be boring. We will have all of the good things of life. We'll have joy and exploration and learning and relationships, but without the painful parts of life, without stress and anxiety, without relationship pain, and without physical hurts and our bodies breaking down. This will be life on the new heaven and new earth. Another thing we know about Jesus' return is that it will be surprising. We saw how in the story of the sheep and the goats, the people who were judged were surprised by the ways that they were judged. But we see there, not only in the passages leading up to that in Matthew chapter 24 and the beginning parts of 25, that we will be surprised by the timing of Jesus' return also. No one knows. Many people try to predict when Jesus will return or how close we are to the end days. And some people try to make today's headlines match up an interpretation of the scripture. But Jesus said, if the owner of the house knew the time that the thief was going to come break into the house, he would have been ready for it. But you have to be on the lookout for Jesus' return because he's not going to tell us when. He tells the story of a parable of the 10 virgins. They were celebrating a wedding. They were ready to have the party as soon as the groom arrived. And so they were all ready with these lamps that they had that were filled with oil because the groom was going to come during the night. So they were waiting for him to arrive so they could start the party. And the groom was unexpectedly late. And so they fell asleep. Half of them had used all the oil in their lamp before the groom arrived. And when he got there, they had to run to the oil cellar to try to find more. But while they were gone, the party started and the doors were locked and they were left out. But those who had brought extra oil were ready and they could go into the party. So we see two things here. One, we see that we don't know when Jesus will return. The first followers of Jesus expected him to return within their lifetimes. Now, we've had more than 2,000 years almost 2,000 years that has elapsed since then, but we're still waiting for him. Just like those 10 women were waiting for the groom. So we know that we don't know when Jesus will return. So what can we learn from them about what to do in the meantime? We need to live life ready. Be prepared. Be prepared for Jesus to come back at any moment. So take advantage of every moment to live like Christ. This doesn't have to mean doing big, amazing things for him. This can mean just living in our day-to-day in ways that honor him. What does that look like? It looks like not waiting to restore a relationship. Maybe you have a friend that you haven't talked to in years. Maybe it was because something significant happened and there was a big rupture. Maybe it was something small and you don't even remember why you stopped talking to them or stopped hanging out. But pick up the phone and call. Don't wait to restore a relationship. Or maybe there's somebody who has hurt you deeply. Take the first step to trying to forgive them. Maybe you don't have to get all the way to forgiving them, but maybe you just need to take that first step. And that first step is saying, God, please help me to forgive this person. Pray and ask that. Or maybe you're ready to turn that over to God and offer that person forgiveness for what they have done to you. Or maybe this relationship means just living a life of relationship. You've got maybe 100 things to do on your to-do list. You've got a busy schedule and running time in all sorts of places and directions. So maybe this relationship means prioritizing spending time with your aging father. Maybe it means taking your high school son or daughter out to lunch because you've got a brief time. Restoring those relationships, valuing those relationships, means emphasizing people more than tasks. This is one way that we can live life ready for Jesus' return. We also don't wait to settle up with God. Sometimes we have something in our life that we know that God wants us to deal with, but we haven't done it yet. Maybe it seems too big or too daunting to actually address. Or maybe we're just kind of comfortable with the way things are now. Or maybe you've been waiting on a whole relationship with God. You've thought, just let me live my life for a while longer. I'll turn back to him once I'm sure I've done everything I want to. Or once I know my time is getting near. We don't know that we will get tomorrow. Don't be caught without any oil for your lamp. Live life ready for Jesus' return. Let's pray. Jesus, we admit that we don't know when you're coming back, but we are grateful that you will judge rightly. You will set everything right and restore and bringing a new creation, a new heaven and a new earth. And so, Lord, we pray that you would help us to live ready in the meantime. Empower us to restore broken relationships, to value the time that we have with people more than tasks, and help us to turn back to you in every area of our lives. We pray this in your name, Jesus. Amen.